A person's dead, 6 are missing after a luxury yacht was hit by a freak tornado off Sicily. 15 people have been rescued. Carsten Borner was the captain of a nearby ship, part of that rescue. He explained to Reuters what had happened.
After the storm was over, we noticed that the ship behind us was gone. We saw a red flare.
Yeah.
So my first mate and I went to the position, and we found this life raft drifting. 15 people inside. 4 people injured, 3 heavy injured.
Yeah.
And we brought them to our ship.
Well, among those missing is the British tech tycoon Mike Lynch, who was once described as Britain's Bill Gates. Now, earlier this year, Lynch spoke to the US West Coast correspondent for The Times after being cleared of fraud allegations.
For me, you don't spend a lot of time on the outcome. The goal is to do the best job. And I have a saying, first tiger on the path. So
what does that mean?
Walking down the path and there's multiple tigers. Well, there's no point in worrying about tiger number 4. You're worried about tiger number 1.
Right.
And so in trial, what you're worried about is the next cross-examination.
Well, let's now talk to Tom Kington, the Italy correspondent for The Times. Hello to you, Tim.
Good afternoon.
Welcome, Tom. Thank you for joining us. Can you just get us the latest on this search?
Well, I think that rescuers have conceded probably that the 6 people who are still missing may well be entombed in the luxury yacht, which is now 50 meters down just off the coast of Sicily near Palermo. So holding out little hope for finding any other survivors who they said to me earlier on would have been found either on a lifeboat or clinging to debris, and they were not found. So the 15 people who were found alive after the boat went down were probably the only survivors that will be found. They found, as you said earlier on, one body who was floating outside, or actually not floating because that body was down by the vessel on the seabed, but outside the vessel. But yeah, now it's specialist divers are arriving who will be able to get inside the yacht and find people who are still trapped inside.
Oh, that is sad news, Tom. I mean, it's been described, hasn't it, as a freak accident, this. Is that a strictly accurate description? When someone like me thinks of the Mediterranean Sea, I think of blue waters, blue skies and calm. Was this entirely a freakish incident?
The incidence of tornadoes out to sea in the Mediterranean is rare, but increasing. You see them sometimes off the coast near Rome or up in Liguria, so-called waterspouts, where the small tornado will form at sea and suck water up into the air. It's a very peculiar sight. And this apparently happened, according to eyewitnesses, local fishermen. And that said, yes, it's rare, but getting a little bit more common. And it's been blamed by experts on the growing temperature of the Mediterranean, which tends to provoke these examples of extreme weather.
Right, so an example, yet another example of global warming. Is it seen, as you say, these things are becoming somewhat more common? Certainly the use of yachts, including super yachts, to tour the Med, nothing very uncommon about that. Is this seen as in any way now a hazardous enterprise? Is it seen as something which people are warned about when you take to sea, looking to have a few days or a few hours out there having fun?
Not yet, but this tragedy may well kind of trigger that kind of response. It's yet to be seen what kind of forecasting was going on for this bad weather, whether the captain of the yacht should have actually taken refuge in port. He was very close to the port of Porticello near Palermo, chose instead to anchor just off the coast there. We may learn that he made the wrong decision.
Indeed. Okay, Tom, thank you so much for that update. That's Tom Kington, the Italy correspondent for The Times.
Matthew Schenk is the chairperson of the Maritime Search and Rescue Council and joins us now. Matthew, I know you've been following this very closely. Can you tell us about what happened? How did the yacht find itself caught in a tornado off the coast of Sicily?
Yeah, good afternoon. It is a very strange set of circumstances. Where the vessel was anchored overnight is a is known anchorage. Palermo's a decently sized port in Sicily. But the phenomenon of tornadoes or sea spouts at sea is quite rare. They do happen, but being caught in one of them is quite unusual.
What sort of craft are we talking about? The Bayesian sounds large, 56-metre vessel. Do we know a little bit more about the vessel itself?
Yes, so the vessel itself is a sailing vessel, and as you said, it's 56 metres in length, which is quite large for a sailing vessel. There are larger super yacht equivalent sailing vessels out there, but putting it into relative size of other super yachts and luxury yachts that are out there, it's not too big, but for a sailing vessel, it's quite large. It would have carried certification as a commercial yacht, which means the vessel has to meet certain safety standards. Crew have to have required certification and training, and there's no indication to show they didn't have any of that. You tend to find that yachts are usually pretty good at maintaining those standards, and especially being a UK flagged vessel, it's required to meet all the international regulations and UK maritime regulations as well, which are quite high.
From what I understand, Matthew, it was another vessel ahead of the Bayesian that also went through the rough patch of weather that managed to get back and was the first on the scene to rescue people in a lifeboat. What can you tell us about the first people on the scene?
So my understanding is the captain of the vessel who responded first was actually in the anchorage at the time as well, and he had to use his engines to manoeuvre his own vessel within the storm to try and keep the vessel positioned even though they were at anchor. I think he reported seeing the vessel was there 1 minute, and then when the storm passed, the vessel was gone. 15 people were recovered from the life raft. Now, these life rafts tend to be quite bright in colour, tend to have flashing white lights on them. So in the darkness as well as the early morning light, it would have been quite obvious to see, which is why the vessel proceeded there first to recover who they could from the life raft. They also probably would have been reporting the incident to the authorities, requesting additional vessels and assistance to deal with what obviously is quite a significant incident.
What are the weather conditions now, Matthew, and are they hampering the search and rescue?
Yeah, so from what I've seen, there is a little bit of wind there. There's nothing that is of too much concern at present, nothing that's out of the ordinary. And that's also was the case with the forecast last night. There was a warning out for storms. However, in this area, they tend to blow through quite quickly. But the general weather conditions last night and today are not, I think, of too much concern. The main issue would have been the darkness or the early morning light, searching for people in the water. That would have been a big concern for the rescue personnel. However, now my understanding is that the search efforts are still ongoing, both on the surface and, of course, under the water.
Matthew, thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Matthew Shank is the chairperson of the Maritime Search and Rescue Council.